So, you walk into the gym, you're training today, you have a big workout planned. Maybe you got a full body routine, maybe you got an old school mass gain routine, maybe you got a strong now routine going. But you walk into the gym, you're like, all right, I gotta warm up. 35 minutes later, you're ready to go. So I want to talk about how warming up is killing your workout and your gains. This is something that we haven't spoken about, but so many people make warming up way more important than it needs to be. People always tell us all the time, I don't have to stretch before I work out, I have to stretch. There's no warm up before I work out. So I want to cover working out, warm up. What do you have to do to warm up before you actually lift? So I guess the question is, Pete, do you do a warm up? And what does that mean?
Yeah, so that's a good question because your warm up the definition of your warm up might be completely different than mine. So technically, yes, there's a warm up period before every gym session. For me, that warm up consists of me getting ready for that specific lift that I'm doing that day, at least the first lift of the day. So let's say I'm walking in and I'm starting with squats. My warm up is, let's say my working weight is going to be 4 plates on squats. I'm not going to walk in and put 4 plates on the bar and start squatting it. So my warm up is...
Why not?
Well, I mean, that's a great way to get injured. That's definitely a great way to get injured. But a lot of people think you need to warm up before you do anything, and the thing is, you need to warm up specifically for that specific movement. So if we're sitting in a chair right now, I've been sitting in the same position for a half hour or so. If I go in the gym right now and I expect to be able to bury a squat with 4 plates on it, in perfect form, without any tightness, without any stiffness or any, nagging aches or pains, that's not going to happen. I'm going to have to walk in, I'm going to have to get my body primed for that movement. So a lot of people go in the gym and they'll do excessive amount of warm-ups. My warm-up is going to specifically be training that squat movement, starting with the lightest weight possible. So like for me, that would be going in the gym, starting with just the empty bar, getting my body loosened up, getting the joints filled with fluid, so things will start moving more comfortably. So maybe 20 reps with just an empty bar, Then I'm going to also warm up my nervous system because, again, your nervous system is just as important as your musculature when you're trying to train with heavy weights. If you're, again, going to squat 4 plates, me just sitting here right now, my body's not primed to hold another 400 pounds on my body. If I warm up to it, it's going to make that weight feel more comfortable. It's going to make my body stronger. It's going to make my nervous system more activated. So squat with one plate on the bar, 5 to 10 reps. At this point now, I'm subjecting my muscles to a little bit of weight. I'm loosening up, but I'm also starting to prime my nervous system. 2 plates, 3 to 5 reps. 3 plates, 1 to 2 reps. 4 plates, just maybe feel it for a rep. What I'm doing is at the same time I'm warming up my muscles, I'm also getting my nervous system activated. Now I'm ready to do that set. Versus right now while I'm sitting here in the chair, my body is not ready at all for that type of weight. So that's my warm-up. A lot of times people will think about stretching as a warm-up. You could definitely do things like dynamic warm-ups and getting your body moving. Those things help, but they really need to be specific for that actual movement. That's the key.
So I've done a lot of different warm-ups. I've been a competitive powerlifter, I've been actually really good at powerlifting. And I've had, I've had long warm-ups. Okay, I'm going to foam roll this.
Right.
I'm going to go through this mobility movement. I'm going to go through this. And it would be literally a half hour, 40 minutes before I actually even step foot near the bar.
Yeah.
And one of the things I noticed when doing that, well, first and foremost, let's cover stretching really fast.
Yeah.
Because it's going to lead into what I'm saying. So the reason why you never want to stretch before you work out is because your muscles are cold. So now if you're taking a cold muscle, you're stretching it past the point that it's not used to, and then you subject the cold muscle to a load, that muscle's not going to be ready to handle that load. So that's why stretching does not work before a workout. Stretching is more beneficial after a workout because your muscles are already warmed up, and then you could use stretching as kind of like a cool down thing. So when I was powerlifting and I was doing all these, crazy things before, I was always getting injured. Something else was hurting. It was like it wasn't helping, it was making things worse. One day I literally got so fed up and I said, I don't have time to do this all the time with these long warm-ups. I'm done. I don't care anymore. I'm just going to go in and just do what you do because that's the same warm-up that I like the best. You have to warm up locally for the lift that you're going to do. So if my first workout for the day is, whatever, a bench press, then just getting under the bar and start moving the bar is the best warm-up that you can do, because you're putting those muscles that you're going to work through the range of motion that they're going to need to go through.
Yeah.
So when I switched, oddly enough, when I did all the right warm-ups, mobility work, foam rolling, rolling out, stretch this, dynamic warm-up that, blah, blah, blah. When I was just going in there and just putting the bar, moving weight, and not worrying about anything else, I got less injured, I got stronger, I saved time.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that works. It doesn't make any sense, because you would think you need to do all this pre-rehab stuff before you actually start lifting to get your body moving, but it's like it's total opposite.
Yeah.
Less is actually more.
Yeah.
And at one point, and I hate to even say this like in public, but at one point, you know this, when I was squatting close to 600 pounds, I would literally put 2 plates on the bar to start.
Yeah, that was that was the first set. That was the first
to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because just I wasn't getting anything out of the bar or 135. So I'm like, I'm just going to start with 2. Why waste time?
Yeah.
It doesn't, but your body, like I said, adapts to anything. And when I was doing that, you would think like, oh my God, you know, you're going to get way hurt doing that.
Yeah.
I was less injured and I was stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely overdo the warm-up to the fact where that will actually cause an injury, if not immediately, but down the line.
Yeah.
You know, because again, like you said, if you're stretching cold muscles, you're subjecting them to injury risk over time, because, you know, a great analogy is if you talk about, or if you think about like a rubber band, you know, your muscles and your tendons, they're like rubber bands. You could stretch on them. The more flexible you get, the more you could stretch them.
Right.
The warmer you get, the more you could stretch them. If you put a rubber band in a freezer in a very cold environment and you stretched on it, it'll snap, you know, versus in a warm environment, there's much more elasticity. You could stretch it much more. So stretching those muscles or putting them through a huge range of motion while they're cold is definitely a recipe for injury. Again, it might not be immediate, but it could be down the line. So you have to always think about what you're doing, even in terms of the warm-up. As you know, I always think about when I'm training, the question I ask myself is, if there's any, what injury risk is this, you know, posing what I'm doing? So if my form is good, if it's tight, the injury risk is going to be very low. But you also have to ask that question while you're warming up, while you're cooling down, while you're doing anything. You know, people think, okay, it's a warm-up. But, you know, if I'm doing a warm-up that's going to overstretch a muscle, there's injury risk that comes with that as well. You know, so don't think about a warm-up as, okay, this is preventing injuries. This is something else I'm doing in the gym, and you always have to ask yourself, okay, what benefits am I getting from this? What injury risk am I getting from this as well?
And one of the things, too, that people talk about all the time is, oh, you have to, and you mentioned it, you know, taking a cold rubber band and stretching it. So most people would argue and say, okay, you should do a little bit of cardio beforehand.
Right.
And I've done that.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 minutes on the treadmill, go for a walk, whatever it is, 5 minutes before you do 5-minute activity.
Yeah.
1, it didn't warm my body up enough.
Yeah.
2, not that, I don't want to say that because I don't want to sound like a baby, but it was like fatiguing for no reason.
Yes.
The benefit to warming up your body in that sense, it wasn't there.
Right.
I didn't get anything more out of that than just starting with weight on the bar and gradually adding weight to it.
Right.
So I don't think that doing cardio before, well, first of all, you should never be doing cardio before. And if you're doing cardio before your weights, big mistake. The way your body breaks down food, your body burns carbohydrates first. That's your muscle's primary source of fuel, carbs. So if you're doing cardio first, you're burning through all that carb that you have stored in your body. And then when you get to the weights, you're not going to have any carbs left to utilize. You're going to be burning fat. And weight training is not as efficient for burning fat. So if you switch that, you do your weight training first, you're going to use your carbohydrate energy then, and then you'll switch to, if you do cardio after, then you'll be burning primarily fat. So there's no reason to, plus it's fatiguing. So if you do a bunch of cardio beforehand, you're going to be weaker for your weights. And we used this analogy on a couple podcasts ago. If your goal is to look as shaped as possible, to be the most muscular as possible, you have to train that activity. And cardio is not going to be that activity that's going to make you look that way. Absolutely. So I think that if you're doing some type of warm-up beforehand as far as like getting your body hot, you're just wasting your time.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, another good point too is, you know, if you're doing static stretching before a weight training session too, that's also going to make your muscles weaker as well. So again, if your goal is you need to lift a certain amount of weight, or you're going to do a certain amount of reps that day with a specific weight, doing static stretching before that is actually going to make it harder to hit those goals. So you're not only putting yourself for a higher risk of injury, but you're also going to make the next part of your workout less effective overall. So you want to be able to perform at your best when you walk in the gym, and doing something like a static stretch before that is actually going to make you perform worse.
Well, cardio beforehand.
Same thing, yep.
You know, foam rolling, mobility work, all that stuff. It's fatiguing for no reason.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
fatiguing for no reason. And if you're fatiguing your body before you even start anything, you're not going to be as strong as possible. And if you want to get as muscular as possible, if you want to build as much muscle as possible, you can't be fatigued prior. One of the things that and you do this, so I could say it, one of the things that we do all the time, and we stole this from Max OT, and that this is one of the major benefits, and you already know what I'm going to say. One of the major benefits of that we've gotten, and I still use this to today, is something called acclimation sets. And basically doing lighter sets beforehand to get you to that weight.
Yeah.
So for example, we use bench press, we use squats, whatever. That's your first movement, right? So now you're moving into your second movement. Do you just jump right into the same weight? No. You do what's called an acclimation set. So maybe you're going from flat bench press, and then you're going to do incline dumbbell bench press. And usually you use, whatever, hundreds on the incline bench press, dumbbells, right? Mm-hmm. So you say, okay, I'm going to do an acclimation set here. I'm going to do like the 80s, and I'm going to just do 5 reps. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not fatiguing, but it's just getting your body primed for that movement. Yeah. So acclimation sets are the best way to warm up. So if you're not looking to kill your gains and kill your workout, you got to do acclimation sets. That is the best way to kind of go about it. You take a longer warm up for the first exercise of the day, just to kind of heat your body up, to kind of get moving, and then you do acclimation sets for everything else after that. So again, I train with full body routines now, like if that's the routine I'm on currently, and I will take longer to warm up for that first initial block of exercises that I'm doing, and then I'll just do acclimation sets after that just to get ready for the next lift.
Yeah, and the acclimation sets are huge. You could do them on the first exercise, you could do them on the second. I mean, you're mostly going to be doing just acclimation sets on the second because you're already warm. Yeah. So the first exercise, you're getting warm, plus you're doing acclimation sets. The second, you're already warm, you're just going to do the acclimation sets. And the big thing with those are, especially if you're not feeling it that day. You know, we all have those days where we go in the gym, we're like, wow, this weight feels a little heavy. I'll even do, on those days, I'll do an acclimation set with the actual working weight. So if you're talking about using the 100-pound dumbbells, and let's say you're going to get about 10 reps with that, I'll do an acclimation set after I do the 80s, let's say, and I'll grab the 100s, and I'll maybe only do 1, 2, or 3 reps, put it down. Now my nervous system is primed to handle the 100 pounds. I've already technically done a set with it, but it's not a fatiguing set. So now when I go do another set with it, I'll get 10 reps, whereas if I just started with the 100s without an acclimation set of the 100s, I might be a little bit out of the groove, I might be a little bit weak that day, I might have done less. So when you do that little acclimation set, it gets your nervous system primed for that weight. And there's a case sometimes I've even gone a little bit heavier. Like I've touched the 110s for maybe a set or two, went down to the 100s. Now my nervous system is actually primed for the 110s, but I'm only lifting 100s, and I might get extra reps that way. So you have to think about 2 things during the warm-up, the muscles and the nervous system.
Yeah. Acclimation sets are definitely the way to go. That is the proper way to warm up and get yourself ready for a workout. But I wanted to talk about it because a lot of people talk about warming up. A lot of people waste a lot of time. Remember, the purpose of a warm-up is to acclimate yourself to the weight and workout that is going to happen, not to fatigue yourself. So if you're doing too much, think about everything you're doing before your workout. If you're doing all those crazy things that I mentioned, you're probably killing your gains and your workout.